Well, hello again. Today I am going to talk briefly about some of the quote unquote real cost of things, right? So a lot of channels cover the cost of rent, maybe food. They go around and try different restaurants, try different things, shop at different stores. What a lot of them don't cover is the cost of owning material things, right? Things that we all like to use, let's say video game consoles, televisions, and things like that. Now, there's a reason for this, because probably the average person, booming abroad, is not really concerned with having the top of the line things, or they're usually making cuts or sacrifices or adjustments to adjust to local life in whatever country they're living in. But we all have our things that we like to have. Like some people are into large surround systems, other people are into video games, other people are into cars, some people are into comic books and things like that. So let's start, for example, with televisions. Televisions are available locally in Nicaragua. That's not an issue. But those televisions are usually weird off-brands that are either, Chinese brands or things like that. Because Nicaragua has separate trade partners different from the US, China being a huge one. Now, I bought a Sansky TV, random Chinese brand that came with Whale OS. A lot of the translations were not great, and the instructions weren't translated well, and the two countries you could select for home country were not even Nicaragua. But it worked fine. It's just another Android television, low end. So I bought that because I had to have a TV present on the property to have internet installed, since I got a package that has internet and television and all that. Now for $37 is what I'm paying Tigo, T-I-G-O, to have internet, one phone line locally, which I don't use, but I gave it to my lady since she lives here. 300 down and 35 up or whatever it was perfect, because the local nodes of internet don't have heavy demand. So the internet you get is very, very reliable and crisp and fast. Even my ping was 11 milliseconds, which is great, because even in Buffalo, New York, my ping is like 22, which is not bad, but I mean, there's places that have it even faster. So as a gamer, that made me happy, because I was able to get quality internet for way less for a whole home package than I would pay in the US. But I had to have a TV. So the point of all this is that if you don't care about the TV brand you have, just buy a local TV anywhere, Walmart, PriceSmart, Gallo Mas Gallo, which is like their local Best Buy, things like that, you can get anywhere. But if you have specific needs for television, like certain specs and certain speeds and certain input lags rates and certain refresh rates and a certain processor, then that's where you might not be able to find the TV you're looking for, and shipping it from the outside in, from the US or wherever you're coming from in, is the only way to get that specific model you may be into, like I am. I like specific TV models. The problem with that is that those costs are quite higher, because you have to buy the US price and then ship it, and the shipping a TV can be pretty expensive. And buying that TV locally, if no one has it, then you don't even have the option. And if someone does, they've already paid all those import fees, and they're also got to have a upcharge, right? So it's usually more hassle, but cheaper to buy certain things you want from the outside the US and ship it in. That's because the buying power of the US is incredibly high, right? America's buying millions of everything. And so the stores like Walmart can get a hell of a deal by buying 2 million units of this or 500,000 units of that. But they're not selling millions of anything in Nicaragua that's high-end electronics, right? So they're not going to have the bargaining power to get the best deal on bulk buying. So therefore, if you want specific things, like an iPhone, iPhones are almost twice the price here, USD, because most stores are buying them at retail and then just adding some profit to it, which is fine, because most people aren't buying the latest iPhone here or the latest Samsung Galaxy Ultra or things like that. Those who do understand they're going to have a premium, and most people can't afford it anyway, so they just buy something practical. Now, even when you try to do subsidies to the store, a few of the places that I tried to get a subsidy through, they wanted more than 70% of the retail price of the phone, and then I can finance the rest in their retail price, not the actual phone price, right? So if an iPhone 17 Pro Max was $2,000, I had to pay $1,400 to get the rest financed. At that point, you just buy it, right? So it's much easier to just buy it in the US and bring it over. So in any of the trips you make back to the U.S., as you should be doing, because unless you're a resident, you can only extend your stays usually 6 months roughly. You just touch foot in the U.S. to do anything once or twice a year, and you just bring back the stuff that you want. As long as they're not like multiple, you're not going to bring in 7 iPads and then the customs are not going to ask you a bunch of questions. But personal use items, you can have one of each. I brought in my last trip in February an iPad Pro 13-inch M5 and Apple Watch and an Apple Pencil and AirPods Pro, all brand new, all boxed, but one of each, so it just seems very personal use. No one batted an eye at it or even asked me anything. So when it comes to things like that, cameras, any kind of electronics, you're probably gonna be best to buy the ones you want on Amazon or Walmart or whatever and use a third-party forwarder to get it here. It's still gonna be cheaper than buying it locally, as they have to usually buy it at retail and put an upcharge on it anyways. Very few stores here have any buying power, if at all. By buying power, I mean the bargaining power they need to buy it in bulk. Just keep that in mind, that even though everything else is cheaper and you can get somewhat useful alternatives here, if you want specific things, you'll have to arrange to bring them in externally to save quite a bit of money, and some things simply aren't sold here. Same thing goes for cars. They have their own cars here, like Suzuki, which is no longer sold in the US, sells tons of cars here. They have cars that I was surprised to see. I saw a Mazda pickup truck, which was very similar to like a CX-7, but it had a bed instead of a SUV body. Pretty cool to see some of the cars that are still here. They haven't been sold in other places. It reminds me of old school Puerto Rico, where there's a few cars here. Toyota Land Cruiser pickup trucks that I haven't seen those since I was Puerto Rico as a kid, right? So that's pretty cool if you're a car guy. Otherwise, you just buy a local car, like the main people. Ford, Nissan has a big presence here. Toyota have a legitimate deal here. But things like BMW, Audi, Corvette, even if though Chevy does, something like a Corvette or a Mustang from Ford is not going to be readily available here. And getting it will cost you quite a bit to get it. If you already own one, it's cheaper in the end to import it, although lots of hoops to jump through. And if you don't own one, it may be a wash to buy it in the US and ship it, because the shipping cost for a car into Nicaragua can vary. Sometimes it feels like they're just making it up, right? The other thing is, if you're not a Nicaraguan resident, on paper, the law states you can't import a vehicle older than 10 years, although I know people who've done it by, greasing the right palms. And then if you're a Nicaraguan resident, like let's say me, I have my lady can import any car of any year for me if she wants to. Then not everything you will find here easily, and not everything is going to be cheaper. Living here will be cheaper, but if you want to flood your house with a bunch of things and modernize it, you might have to do a little bit of extra legwork to get specific brands and specific things at a cost that you find acceptable. Because since you're buying it and shipping it and going through customs, regardless, the cost is going to be higher than retail in the US. But, we're all making sacrifices to move here. So if you can live without it, do it. If not, then always keep in mind that your overall cost of living is so low that if you have to spend a little bit more on something up front to get it here, then it's worth it in the end, because you're still ahead of the game, right? See ya.